Thanks. Today, as I mentioned, we are going to talk about how to vet your data partners and different use cases, whether you're working with third-party vendors sending you leads, whether you are selling leads to partners who are then calling them, or if you're dealing in aged or contact data, different applications for this. So what we'll cover today, obviously more detail around what assumed is and why it is needed. We'll talk a little bit about know your customer laws and recent part of an FTC ruling. And then we'll do a couple use cases for assumed contacts, namely vetting your vendor, vetting your partner or buyer, and then, as I mentioned, the aged lead use case. So what is assumed? We provide real trackable contacts. Other people refer to those as seeded leads or mystery leads. It is a simple and effective way to monitor data leaks. There are extensive tools. This is a easy, simple to implement application that can also be used to validate your processes, whether those are internal communications or what we'll be talking about today, those third-party communications. As I mentioned, it is cost effective. It's a per contact charge. Manage that subscription easily in the UI. So you can use it for vetting, and maybe that might be a temporary contact or something like an age lead where you would want to leave it in there for a longer term. And so ultimately what it provides is peace of mind. So, right now, if you don't have any sort of seeded leads in your, let's say, database, or if you don't vet your vendors, really anything can be going on. Take a look here. In some cases, really anything. So why is this needed? This is like a first line of defense. So it detects indicators of potential data leaks by, as mentioned, providing a real trackable context so that you can see the activity, the phone calls, the SMS, and the emails being sent to that contact. And then you can tag that contact so you know exactly where it resides. So as far as why it is needed, know your customer laws. This is something that has primarily been in the banking industry, but has been making its way at the state and federal level. So in the past, ignorance may be acceptable. It's no longer bliss, as they say. FTC ruling, we'll look at that part where how assume could fit into a documented process for your organization related to vetting those data partners. Security, so this one's pretty self-explanatory. If you are a boberdoo client, you know it is something that we take very seriously and have a lot of tools to allow you to manage it. This follows in line with that emphasis. And then in terms of monitoring communications, depending on your company's compliance policy, assumed contacts can be used to monitor internal SMS, email, call frequencies for compliance, as well as consistency of message. And then finally, validating the customer-consumer experience. So whether they're leads you generate or leads that a vendor is generating, understanding what the consumer is being pitched by your buyers, the better that you can control those communications and be aware of them, the better the lead experience is, and a better lead experience means a higher quality lead, which ultimately leads to more revenue for a lead generator. So, as I mentioned, the Know Your Customer laws are a legal requirement for financial institutions primarily, but as I mentioned, being made into other industries to establish a customer's identity as well as establish their risk factors. So, this was originally helped to prevent identity theft and money laundering and things like that, but as I mentioned, they are being applied in other industries. And so, that speaks directly to how, or if you have a process to vet your data buyers. So next up, as far as the FTC ruling, we took a little clip from one. We have the reference if you'd like it, but that the company had not implemented a program to regularly seed leads to test for security breaches or detect how the lead is being used in their direct and indirect recipients. So this is what Assume does. We provide you with a tool that you can build as part of a program to just do just this. If you think this doesn't apply to you, I'm going to tell you about the 4 forms that I filled out when we were beta testing Assumed. I filled out 4 forms on 4 different websites in one industry, and I received 317 phone calls in 48 hours. Now, I didn't actually receive the calls the Assumed contact did, and we were able to log it. But that is not the best customer experience. So if I am vetting a vendor and I see 317 phone calls, I don't think I want to buy those leads. And then conversely, if you're vetting your lead buyer and you see, as we can take a look at traffic by label, 50% of these calls are coming from one label, that is a lead buyer that you may want to consider too risky. So next up, we'll just jump in, take a look at Assumed and some of the different processes. So similar dashboard. This is just my current demo system here. The dashboard gives you a high-level view of the activity for your contacts. Easy order process. We can always cover that, but it's per contact. And then when we get into the inbox, it's going to look very similar to other inboxes. You have your tagging on the left here that you can assign to a given contact. And then this is going to aggregate by email, by calls, and by SMS messages. So for example here, we can see by contact. I can filter down by the label to get an understanding of how many contacts are coming to each of them. Same thing with the voice. And SMS messages. So you can view the actual content that is being sent. Same thing with the email address. So when we talk about consistency of message or validating the content or communications to a consumer, this gives you that insight. You can whitelist emails. So that way, if those are acceptable level for your, let's say, internal communications, this comes into play with notifications. So this activity for whitelisted contacts are not considered. So here are those contacts themselves. You'll see I have them labeled according to the different use cases we'll go through today. If we look at a given contact, you'll have a full name, phone number, email address, and real address. As I mentioned, those are real contacts that are compiled and can be then used for those submissions. So In terms of the different use cases, the first we can take a look at is vetting a vendor. So let's say I bring on a new vendor as part of my vendor questionnaire. I ask them for their landing page that the majority of leads come through, and then let them know I'm going to be submitting a seeded contact to understand the communications and what happens to those leads. So I would take this contact, and I'm going to use Boberdoo as an example. So in this case here, I'm going to submit that assumed contact into the system. And then any communications coming to this contact will then be in my inbox here. So if they are coming in, you'll see kind of made sure we had some data in here for the demo. But as they come in, this is a real-time view. Be able to see those. The next use case then would be for partners. So in this case, I am vetting a new lead buyer that I'm onboarding. A little bit more complex here because we have money to deal with, and when. So maybe the first lead, and then you're transparent with them, or mixing it into their first batch of leads. You can do this through the manual entry form in the lead system, and then just utilize the match with partner ID. So let's say in this use case, I'm going to onboard Lex into lead.boberdoo as a new buyer. I'm going to then use the manual review. I'll match with the partner ID for Lex and submit this information. And in this case, I'm going to be using the assumed contact from the partner vetting. So lead went in and matched, went to Lex, and now I can come back into my inbox, and any calls or emails will be logged. So the additional things when you consider that you have actually sold a lead that they believe to be real to their system and they have likely charged them money, the last thing that you would want to do is to refund the lead. So if the lead is just being posted into a CRM, you could probably refund that lead from the leads tab right away. Or if you want them to work the lead for 3, 5, 7 days before the refund, you would probably want to make a calendar event for yourself to refund this lead ID back to that partner. But once that's done, you will be able to continue to collect that information. So the last use case that we'll have here is dealing with data or contacts, so non-real-time leads. Whether you are working with a call center who's going to be making outbound dials to a data set that you provide them, or you are selling aged leads, it is even more important to understand what is happening. If you're working with a call center, what are they doing with the data after the engagement? I actually asked several call centers in the last couple of conferences, has anybody ever asked you what you do with the data after they provide it for you and the campaign ends? And they said nobody's ever asked that question. Several have said that. So, trust but verify, as they say. The way that you can verify that they are not, using that data after your campaign ends is by seeding that database with contacts. So again, we're going to use an assumed contact with the age leads use case. And then I have an example age database here. So this is one, I mean, it depends on how much your data you're dealing with. Probably would not want to do just one contact for 50,000 records. And so you would come up with some ratio that you're comfortable with to seed the database with those assumed contacts. And that is a little bit more of a long-term set it and forget it situation. But then again, through the notification system, if a month down the road, your database was being dialed out or dropped into an email blast for something unrelated to the intent of the data originally, you would have this as a notification system. Okay, so those are the primary use cases that we're going to discuss today. Being in sales, there's some other ones that I see. Process validation, depending on how your relationships with your lead buyers, I see it as an opportunity to advise on their call, email, SMS cadences, as well as messaging. So that might be another way that you can add value as a lead generator to your buyers. And, again, ultimately raise your revenue per lead. Assumed is live. So if you are interested, don't hesitate to let us over here at Boberdoo know, but you can go